substitution method and elimination method. So this whole method here is substitution method, and in subsequent chapters we are going to be discussing how to use elimination method. Still, we are going to deal with all of those in this video. So let's proceed. So in this video we are going to be talking about what? Simultaneous equation. We are going to be dealing with this example first. So here we have 2x plus 3y is equals to 18, equation 1. 6x plus 4y is equals to 16, equation 2. So how do we solve when we are given what? An equation like this? So this basically is what is called simultaneous equation. And some basic things you need to know is that in order to solve simultaneous equation, you either use substitution method or elimination method. This whole process here is called the substitution method. So let's proceed. In order to do what? To solve using substitution method, the first thing you want to do is take your first equation, which is 2x plus 3y is equals to 18, equation 1, and you need to make either y or x the subject of formula. And in order to do that, all you need to do is what? Collect like terms, that is 3 we go to the other side of the equal to sign, and when that is happening, the sign that 3 is carrying will change to the opposite. Here 3 is carrying positive 1, so when 3 is going to this side, crossing the brackets, it's going to change to negative 3, as you can see here. So we have what? 18 minus 3y. So what do we do next? The next thing we do in order to make what? S the subject of formula is to divide both sides by the coefficient of s. And when we say coefficient is simply what is in front of s and that is combined to s by multiplication. So this is 2s, that is 2 is combined to s by multiplication, that's making it 2s. So you divide what? Both sides by 2, and that's why we divided both sides by 2 here. So we have what? S is equals to what? 18 minus 3y divided by 2. So what do we do after doing this? After doing this, the next thing we want to do is to do what? Substitute our value for what? Our value for s into equation 2, and this is our equation 2. 6s plus 3y is equals to 16. So we're going to substitute our value for s. That means anywhere we see s in equation 2, we're going to replace it with the whole of this figure that we have here. So we're going to have what? When we do that, we're going to have what? 6 into brackets 18 minus 3y close bracket divided by 2. And in case you don't know how to multiply fraction, to know how to multiply fraction is very simple. All you need to know is that what? Numerator multiply numerator, and numerator is what is up or what is above, while denominator is what is below. So numerator multiply numerator and denominator multiply denominator. So we're going to have what? 6 times 18 minus 6 times negative 3y. 6 times 18 plus 6 times negative 3y. And then after we do that, we're going to have what? Something like this, which is going to give us 6 times 18 minus 3y close bracket. So what we need to do is to, after opening this bracket, we need to look for the LCM. In case you don't know how to solve or look for the LCM, we are going to touch on that very soon. It probably might be my next topic. So basically, to look for the LCM here, you just need to know that what? 2 and 1, since nothing can go in 2 and 1, you just multiply the two of them together. So that's why we have 2 here. So we multiply the denominator together here. This is not the usual way you are going to do it. For example, if this place were to be 4, then it means we are going to follow a different approach in order to get the LCM. If you don't know how to do LCM, then we're going to discuss that in my next video. Just go ahead and check my YouTube channel. I've already uploaded, I must have uploaded a video on LCM before you even watch this video finish. So all you need to do is know that the LCM is 2. And what do we do next? We say what? 2 in 2. That is, this 2 now is now the common denominator of these two denominators. So 2 in 2, that's 1. So we're going to use that one to multiply the whole of the numerator here. And 1 in 2, that's 2. So we're going to use that 2 to multiply the numerator here. 2 in 2, that's 1. So we're going to use that one to multiply the whole of the numerator here. That's we're going to use that one to multiply the whole of this. And 1 in 2, which is the common denominator, we're going to get what? 2. So we're going to use that to multiply the whole of the numerator here. So that's why we have something like this. So after we've done this, the next thing to do is to what? Cross multiply. Then we open this bracket. So after opening this bracket, 6 times 18, that will give us 108, and 6 times what? Negative 3y, that will give us negative 18y plus 8y. So what do we need to do next? The next thing we need to do is collect like terms. So we're going to have what? 32 minus 108, that will give us negative 76, and negative 18y plus 8y, which is the same thing as saying what? 8y minus 18y, that will give us negative 10. So you divide both sides by what? Negative 10 in order to make y the subject of formula. So we're going to divide both sides by negative 10, divide both sides by negative 10, and then we're going to get what? Y at 7.6. This is how to solve using substitution method. So after getting a y at 7.6, then you go ahead and substitute this value for y into equation 1, into this equation. So we're going to have what? 2s plus 3y is equals to what? 18. And then when we substitute it, that means we're going to replace what? Y with this value in equation 1. So we're going to have what? 2s plus 3y. That's what we have here. 2s plus 3 into bracket 7.6 close bracket is equals to 18. You can see that we've substituted, we've replaced y in equation 1 with 7.6. That's why we have this. So what we need to do next is what? Expand. So we're going to have what? 2s. After expanding, then we collect like terms, and this will give us what? Negative 4.8. When we multiply this now, we're going to get what? 22.8. And then after doing what? After saying 18 minus 22.8, that will give us what? Negative 4.8. And then you are going to do what? Go ahead and divide both sides by 2 in order to make what? 2 the subject of formula, and in order to get our value for what? S. In order to make S the subject of formula, in order to make S the subject of formula, we are going to divide both sides by what? 2. And that will give us what? S is equals to what? Negative 2.4. So this is how to solve simultaneous equation using what? Substitution method. If you don't understand, don't worry, there are still more examples that we're going to go through together that will make you what? Understand. So let's go ahead. If you don't understand substitution, hold on first. Let's look at elimination method if you'll be comfortable with that more. So let's go. So now let's try and solve this same equation using what? Elimination method. So we have 2s plus 3y is equals to 18, equation 1, and 6s plus 4y is equals to 16, equation 2. So we are going to have what? What are we going to do? So if we want to eliminate, say, y, for example, in order for us to eliminate y, that means y must be equal in both equations, because we're going to subtract what? Equation 1 from 2. We're going to subtract equation 1 from 2. That is, in order for us to eliminate y, that means the coefficient of y in equation 1 and equation 2 must be equal. And if we wanted to eliminate what? S in both equations, that means the coefficient of S in equation 1 and equation 2 must be equal. So how do we do this? All we need to do is what? We're going to use what? The coefficient of y, the opposite of the coefficient of y in equation 1 to multiply the whole of equation 2, and the opposite of the coefficient of y in equation 2 to multiply the whole of equation 1. So you can see that the opposite sign of y in equation what? In equation 2 is negative 4. That's why we are multiplying the whole of equation 1 by what? Negative 4. And here you can see that we have what? Positive 3. That's why we're going to multiply the whole of equation 2 by negative 3. So if the sign here is negative, you are going to multiply the whole of this opposite equation by the opposite sign, which is positive. That's why you see that the sign here is positive 4. So we're going to multiply the whole of equation 1 by what? Negative 4. And the sign here is positive 3. So we're going to multiply the whole of equation 2 by what? By negative 3, sorry. So now let's go ahead. After multiplying that, we're going to get what? Equation 3 and equation 4. So basically, what we do to get the whole of this is to do what? Multiply what? Is to multiply the whole of equation 1 by what? Negative 4. So that gives us what? Negative 8s minus 12y is equals to what? Negative 72. And then we do the same thing here again. We multiply the whole of equation what? Equation 2 by what? Negative 3. So that's going to give us what? Negative 18s minus 12y is equals to negative 48, equation 4. So multiply the whole of equation 2 by what? Negative 3. So I used to advise my students to use what elimination method when they are under tough exam timing. That is when they don't have enough time, because elimination method is faster than substitution method by far. And when you are using what elimination method, you don't have to deal with any fraction. In most cases, you don't deal with any fraction. You can see here there are no fractions for us to deal with. So what do we do? All we need to do here now is to subtract what equation 3 from equation 4. So I'm going to say what negative 18s minus 8s, and what that's, we can see it here, negative 18s, which is the value of s in equation 2 and in equation 4, minus 8s, which is the value of s in equation 3. And that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to say what negative 12y minus 12y, and that will give us what negative 12y minus 12y, and then we're going to say what negative 48 minus 72, that will give us what this right here. So what do we do next? Whenever you see minus like this, it is going to change to what? Plus. So negative 12y plus 12y is going to cancel out, and same thing will happen here. Whenever I see minus here, it's going to change to what? Plus. So we're going to have 8s minus 18s, that will give us negative 10s, and here too we are going to have what? 72, because minus will change to plus, and then we're going to have 72 minus 48, that will give you what? That will give you what? 24. So we divide both sides by what? Negative 10, because negative 10 is the coefficient of s. So we're going to divide both sides by negative 10, and we're going to get the same negative 2.4, which we got earlier here, negative 2.4. So what do we do next? The next thing to do is to what? Substitute your value for s into equation 1, not equation 3, not equation 4, but equation 1. So that's what we did here. And you can also substitute that same value into equation 2 as well, but it is advisable for you to go with equation 1. So that's what we did here. We said what? 6 into bracket negative 2.4 close bracket plus 4y is equals to what? 16. So when we expanded this, we have what? Negative 14.4 plus 4y is equals to 16, and then we collected like terms. So when you take this like this, remember, when you take this like this, the sign will turn to what? Positive. Whenever a sign is crossing an equals to sign, the sign changes to its opposite form. So this will give us what? 30.4. Divide both sides by 4, and I'm going to get what? 7.6, which is the same thing as what we got in the earlier example using what? Substitution method. So you can see that here we substituted what? 7.6 into equation 1, but in this second equation we are substituting our what? Value for s into equation 2. So you can substitute your value for s when you are using elimination into equation 2 instead of equation 1, but you can also substitute it into equation 1. It will still work. That is why in some examination you see find the what value of s and y that will satisfy both equation 1 and equation 2. That means you should solve simultaneously. So that is why it is going to satisfy equation 1 and equation 2 if you substitute it into any of these equations. So let's proceed into other examples. So this is how to solve simultaneous equation using what? Elimination method. Let's proceed to other examples. So this example is quite different but also straightforward. We have what? P is equals to 3q, equation 1, and 4p minus 5q is equals to 14, equation 2. So you can see that here we already know that p is equals to 3q, which means we don't need to solve or make anything the subject of formula, because p is already the subject of formula. So we're going to do what? Go ahead and substitute what? 3q for p into equation 2. Now don't make the mistake, because of I said you can substitute what? Your answer into what? Any equation does not mean that when you are solving like this, you should not make what? Substitute 3q into what? Into this equation 1. That you only do when you've what? When you've solved like this and you know the real value of what? Of q, not the value that was given equation. So meaning you have to do what? You have to substitute. When you start solving initially, you have to substitute into equation 2, not into any of the equation. I'm trying to make that very clear. When you start solving initially, you have to substitute into equation 2, not into any of the equation. You can't substitute, for example, 3q into equation 1, because that will give us 3q is equals to 3q, which does not make any sense. So what we do is what? We're going to substitute this into equation 2. So we're going to have what? 4 into bracket 3q close bracket minus 5q is equals to 14. We go ahead and expand this. We're going to have what? 12q minus 5q is equals to 14. And this will give us, when we simplify this will give us 7q is equals to 14. Divide both sides by 7 in order to make q the subject of formula. You get q is equals to 2. What do we do next? We substitute our answer what? For q into what? Into equation 1. So I'm going to have 3 times q, 3 times 2, that will give you what? 6. Now if you go ahead and substitute this same answer into equation what? Into equation 2. We substitute this same q into equation 2 rather than substituting into equation 1. Let's see, maybe we get the same answer. We're going to have what? Negative 5 times 2, that will give you negative 10. When we take it like this, that will give you what? Positive 10, which will give what? Which will add up to what? 24. Divide both sides by 4, that will give you what? 6. So you can see that whenever you solve like this, you can now substitute your answer into either equation 1 or equation 2. So it doesn't matter. But don't make the mistake of what? When you start initially now trying to substitute your answer into what? Maybe equation 1 or equation 2. You have to first of all substitute into equation 2. Then after solving and getting the real value of q, then you can now substitute it into either equation 1 or equation 2. So let's see how we solve this same problem using elimination method. This is how you solve using elimination method this same problem. So let's go ahead. Here we have p minus 3q is equals to 0. Remember, you can see that here we have to equate this thing to 0 because we are going to be multiplying through. And to make it a standard equation, we need to equate it to 0. So we are going to have what? P minus 3q is equals to 0 equation 1, and 4p minus 5q is equals to 14 equation 2. So remember what we said. You are going to use what? The opposite sign of the coefficient of q in equation 2 to multiply the whole of equation 1, and the opposite sign of coefficient of q in equation 1 to multiply the whole of equation 2. So here is actually supposed to be what? Positive 3 and not negative 3. So let me correct that quickly. Since we have what? Negative 5q and what? Negative 3q, we are going to do what? We are going to multiply by what? Positive 3. So now when we multiply, we are going to multiply the whole of this by the opposite sign. We are going to multiply the whole of equation 1 by the opposite sign of the coefficient. So let's assume we want to eliminate what? P. We are going to multiply the whole of equation 1 by the opposite sign of P in equation 2. That's the opposite sign of the coefficient of P in equation 2. That's going to give us negative 4. And we're going to multiply the whole of equation 2 by the opposite sign of the coefficient of P in equation 1. So you just need to pay attention. You are going to get it. It might sound confusing initially, but you are going to get it. So here you can see that we have negative 5 and negative 3, which means we are going to multiply the whole of equation 1 by positive 5 because of we have what? Negative 5. And here we have negative 3, which means we are going to multiply the whole of equation 2 by positive 3 because of we have what? Negative 3 in order to eliminate. So once we do that, we are going to be left with what? 5q. Remember, we are multiplying by 5. We are going to be left with 5q minus 15q is equal 5p minus 15q, sorry, is equals to 0, equation 3. And what? When we multiply the whole of this by what? The whole of this by what? 3, we are going to have what? 12p minus 15q is equals to 42, equation 4. I should have written this, but let's leave it that way. So what do we do next? What we need to do is what? Now we need to subtract what? Equation what? 3 from 4. Maybe I should write that out. Now we have to subtract what? This is equation 4. Let me write that. Equation 4. Sorry. So this is equation 4. Or let's just leave it that way. Let's have it in mind that this is equation 4. So we are going to what? Subtract what? Equation 3 from 4. So we are going to have what? 12p minus 5p and negative 15p minus 15q, negative 15q minus 15q. So you can remember that when we have what minus, that will give you plus. So we have negative 15q plus 15q, that will give you 0. And we have what 42 minus 0, that will give you 42. So 12p minus 5q, that will give you 7p is equals to 42. Divide both side by 7, we are going to have what p is equals to 6. So what are we going to do next? We are going to substitute what 6 into equation 1, and you can decide to substitute it into equation 2 as well. It will still work equally. So we are going to have what p is equals to what negative 6 minus 3q is equals to what 0. So all you need to do is collect like terms. So q negative 3q can go like this to turn to positive 3q, which is what we have here. Divide both side by 3, and then we have what q is equals to 2. Let's assume we substituted this same thing into equation 2. We're going to have what 6 times 4, that will give you 24. Collect like terms, that will give you what 14 minus 24, that will give you what negative 10. Divide both side by what negative 5. Divide both side by negative 5, we have what we are still going to get what 2. So negative 5q divided by what negative 10, that will give you what 2. Which means once you solve and you get your first answer like this, you can substitute it into either equation 1 or equation 2. But when using elimination method, please don't make the mistake of substituting it into equation what? Into equation 3 or 4. You have to substitute it into equation 1 or 2. Because if let's assume you substitute into equation what 3, we are going to have what 6 times 5. 6 times 5, that will give you what 30. When you collect like terms, are going to give you, so you can see we are still getting the same answer even if you substitute it into equation 2. But I advise you substitute it into equation 1 or equation 2. So let's proceed. Here we have what 2s minus y is equals to 6, equation 1, and 2s plus 4y is equals to 1, equation 2. So what do we need to do? The first thing we need to do is what? Whenever you are solving using substitution method, we have to first of all make what? Either s or y the subject of formula in equation 1. Note equation 1, not equation 2. We have to make what? Either what? S or y the subject of formula in equation 1 in equation 1. So what do? So here we want to make what? S the subject of formula. What are we going to do? We are going to take y to the other side, and remember when y is going to the other side, the sign that y is carrying will turn to the opposite. So when y is crossing this equals to, it will become what? Plus y. And then we divide both sides by 2 in order to make what? S the subject of formula, because 2 is the coefficient of s. So we're going to have what? S is equals to 6 plus y divided by 2. That will make what? S the subject of formula. And remember what we said, you need to substitute this whole equation or this whole expression. You need to substitute it for s in equation 2. This is equation 2 here. Yeah? So that means anywhere you see s in equation 2, you are going to replace it with the whole of this. So we are going to have what? 2. That's exactly what we have here. 2 into bracket 6 plus y close bracket divided by 2. That's what? 2 into bracket 6 plus y close bracket divided by 2 plus 4y over 1 is equals to 1 over 1. So whenever there's nothing, you can just make it what? Over 1. So what do we need to do? The next thing we need to do is what? Make what? We need to look for the LCM and make these two fractions have a common denominator. And in order to do that, remember you have what? 2 and 1. In order to do that, remember if you don't know LCM, please pause this video and first of all watch my video on LCM in order to understand thoroughly. So we have what? 2 and 1. So in order to make what? This whole thing have a common denominator, you have to look for the LCM, and the LCM here is what? 2. That's exactly what we have here. So let me draw this line so it's clear that this is a fraction. Sorry. So we have what? So the whole of this is a fraction now. So the LCM is what? The LCM between these two is what? Between these two denominator is what? 2. So we are going to go ahead and do exactly what we did initially that I explained. We are going to say what? 2 into the common denominator, which is 2, that will give you 1. 2 divided by 2, that's 1. Then use your answer to multiply the whole of the numerator. And then you say 1 into That will give you what? 2. Then use your answer to multiply the whole of the numerator, which is 4y. That's how we got our 8y. Then is equals to what? 1 over 1. Again, let me draw this properly. That will give you what? 1 over 1. So what do we need to do after this? Basically, we need to what? Simplify. This will give you 12 plus 10y is equals to 2. And how do we get that? By after cross multiplying, then we now simplify. Because 2 times 1, that will give you 2. And the whole of this times 1, that will give you what? That will still give you the whole of this. So after that, we simplify. So we're going to have what? 12 plus 10y is equals to 2. We collect like terms by taking what? The whole of this to the other side. When we say collect like terms, it simply means that anything that does not look alike, you can take anything that look alike to meet what it is related to. You can see this one has y, but this one does not have y. So we need to take the whole of this, that's 12, to the other side. And remember, when 12 is crossing an equals to sign, the sign will change to the opposite sign. So we're going to have what? 10y is equals to what? 2 minus 12. That's going to give you what? Negative 10, which is how we got negative 10 here. Divide both side by 10, divide both side by 10, and we're going to have what? Negative 1. So we're going to do what? Substitute our answer, which is negative 1, into equation what? 1 or equation 2. Remember now, you can now substitute your answer into equation 1 or equation 2. So we're going to have what? 2, but here we are substituting our answer into equation 1. We're going to have 2 into 2s minus open bracket negative 1 close bracket. Remember, you simply replace what? Y with the whole of this in equation 1. So that's exactly what we did. We replace what? Y with negative 1. And remember, whenever you have negative, that will be turned to positive. So we're going to have what? 2s plus 1 is equals to 6. When you collect like terms, you're going to have what? 6 minus 1, that will give you 5, which is how we got 5 here. Divide both side by 2, that's 2.5. So you understand that if you are not getting, maybe you should reverse the video and watch it again in order to understand properly. So let's solve this same problem using what? Using elimination method, which is what? The easiest way to solve for me. That's the way I advise my students to solve. So here we have what? Positive 4. If we want to eliminate y, for example, we have what? Negative 1 here, and we have what? Positive 4 here. So how do we what? Eliminate y? We simply do what? Multiply the whole of equation 1 by the opposite sign of the coefficient of y in equation 2. And we multiply the whole of equation 2 by the opposite sign of the coefficient of y in equation 1. So here you can see that we have positive 4, which means we're going to multiply the whole of equation 1 by what? Negative 4. And here we have what? Negative 1, which means we're going to multiply the whole of equation 2 by what? Positive 1. That's exactly what we did to get what? Equation 3 and equation 4. So we have negative 2s plus 4y is equals to negative 24, equation 3. That's by multiplying the whole of this by negative 4, and then multiply the whole of this by positive 1, which simply gives us the same thing. So get this. After doing that, remember, you're going to subtract what? Equation 3 from equation 4, which means we're going to have 2s minus 8s, that will give you 10s, and 4y minus 4y, that will give you what? 0, which means this whole thing has been eliminated. That's why it's called elimination method. One of the dependent variable will be eliminated. And here we have what? 1 minus 24. Remember, when you have minus, that will give you what? Plus. So 1 minus 24, that will give you 25. Divide both sides by 10, that will give you what? S is equals to 2.5. So we have 2 into bracket 2.5 close bracket minus y is equals to 6. That's after substituting the whole of this value into either equation 1 or equation 2. Equation 1 or equation 2. So we are going to have what? 2 into bracket 2.5 close bracket minus y is equals to 6. When you expand this, we are going to have what? 5 minus y is equals to 6. When you collect like terms, you are going to have y is equals to what? Negative 1. So you can see that this is how you solve simultaneous equation using both elimination method and substitution method. Remember, all you need to do is what? When you are solving using substitution method, you do what? You make any of the dependent variable. X and y are called dependent variable in simultaneous equation. So you make any of the dependent variables subject to formula, substitute that into equation 2 or the opposite equation, and then after doing that, you simplify equation 2 like we've done here. And after that, after simplifying it, you get what? You will get the value for y or s depending on what you made the subject of formula. And after that, you substitute that into either equation 1 or equation 2 in order to get your what? In order to get your answer. So that's just how you go about solving simultaneous equation. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you don't still understand, don't worry, because I'm going to be making more videos on simultaneous equation in order to ensure that you understand this technique of mathematics and how to solve. And it is very important for you to understand simultaneous equation, because if you can't solve simultaneous equation properly, you will find you have problem when you get to topics like simultaneous quadratic and linear equation. Yes, there's an equation called simultaneous quadratic and linear equation. So I hope you enjoyed this video.